Today is nice weather.
Yeah.
Finally we got the spring. Anyway, we are very fortunate to try to study about what is the virtuous, what is non-virtuous. Virtuous, non-virtuous, very, very important to understand for us. We create our body, speech, mind, the action, they create two, non-virtuous action and virtuous action for our body, speech, mind. Therefore, what can't we do, they will become non-virtuous. What can't we do, it will become virtuous. We have to understand. Then also, usually everybody, all the human beings wish to happy and a wonderful life. Wonderful life, their family, right? Therefore, Buddhism says, don't harm others. If you wish happy and wonderful life, don't harm others. Don't hit others. Then we say, why? I wish happy, but why I need to I cannot hit others. Yeah, we need to be cautious, right? Of course, I want happiness, wonderful love. That why I cannot hit others. Then say, if you hit others, you hit yourself. You harm others. You harm yourself. Then we have second question. I hit them. How can I hit myself? Then there's a moment you hit, you harm others. You yourself not comfortable. You're not happy. Therefore, you hit or you harm yourself. What do you think? This is true or not? What do you got to think? Think the question.
Does it make sense?
It doesn't make sense. This is a very, very specific message, Buddha, for all the sentient beings. If you wish happy, don't hit others. Now, many people don't understand this. Of course I have to hit my enemies, because they harm me, everybody think. It's really, we think about carefully. This is very, very true. Therefore, if you wish, don't harm others. And how can you harm? Body, speech, mind. Not necessary to shoot a gun. Not necessary to put, big things, Body, usually at a long time, the body hit other means. They beat, they do other body. There are also many ways, but I think now we can say, we can finger. Everybody use the finger, very bad message we can write to each other. Right? This is related to, body. The speech also, they come together. You can say bad words for the mind. We create very bad things. Many different ways. How can I eat, how can I say some bad things? That kind of things, body, speech, mind, we have to check. We don't need to check others. Buddha said, no need to check others, not investigation others. You check by yourself. You check by your own mind. How's your motivation, how's your actions going. Therefore, this is a very important to understand deep or deeper. Importance. Therefore, Buddha said, okay, now I think I have to switch off. Otherwise, just. 아니 쇼바드 타원을 붙여버렸어. 지금 전세대 따와 땡주인 붙여버렸어. 그래서 말했어.
So the conduct has to be non-violence. The reason is because the view is interdependent.
Okay? 다 수수 땡고서 수수 그래봐 제고서 될어야 내가 지나 아니 수수 그래봐 제가 따가는 거 왔어.
So if we harm the people who have to depend on, then those people will not be there to help us when we need them, right?
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
Yeah. Give some waters. Oh yeah, this is now we have very beautiful spring coming down. They bring very bad energy. You know, the trees got a lot of flowers. Okay, 들어봐. 된지다 다 쇼가 잡아내다 세대 다는 게 해야 돼. 리마에 좀 강리기 and issue just some 그런 거 지나는 거 있죠. 그래서
So the conduct being non-violent means, like I said earlier, not causing harm to others through any of one's body, speech, or mind.
들어봐. 대체적으로 제대됐다. 땡주세야 됐다. 땡주 타라만 거요. 그래서
And so the reason for that is, like we said about the interdependent. The interdependent, there are many different levels, like subtle and gross levels.
다 라파로 라파이나 아니 그래서 릴라고 돼요. 그래서
So if we were to talk about the gross level of interdependence,
단단한도 신발도 떼고 그래서
for example, right now we have to depend on the farmers, right?
그래서 다 이상은 나도 신발 따고 나도 신발 떼고 그래서 무슨 생각을 넣었어.
So right now, maybe we might, if we didn't think in deep, then we might not think that why do I have to depend? We might think why do I have to depend on farmers?
먼저 총괄한 그런데 세마 vegetable 소소 담가치는 요초조 때 시제 말이 심바도 심어요.
And so, being able to go into the grocery store and buy the vegetables that we like, as we want, is made possible by who? By the farmers, right?
If no farmers, we don't get vegetables. Maybe you have to go by we have to walk by ourselves. These vegetables, we don't know where they come from. Maybe you guys know the neighbors, who they say. Anyway, most maybe come different countries. Therefore, the farmers will come for us. Also, we also come for them. Because we buy, they get money, they are there. Therefore, each other. Then you can check, we go to stores, we can buy many different kind of clothes. Maybe you guys have, how many? Maybe hundreds of t-shirts, maybe 50 shoes. Certain people, maybe they use once, twice, and they just put that. But our attachment, this is not just, I'm not just you guys, we all attachment. We saw and I say, I want to buy this. Then we use it a little bit, just like that. Then we go buy another one. We are attachment, and we can, it always be need. But anyway, this we have We have choice, right? We can go to all the different malls. We can buy things, right? Who made first the clothes? Very hard work. We don't know who made this, how hard work. Therefore, no one made them, we don't get clothes. Therefore, they also will come for us. Also, we also can't afford them. We buy, they can get more. You guys, maybe every 7 days you can change every day, different clothes, right? You guys maybe maybe once a day. When we Tibetan, no, maybe not all the Tibetan. When I was growing up, maybe the one, then enter there, finish, just that, no change. No change, no wash. But they're not very smart, the weather is very cold. We don't see, maybe the other people can see that, but we can just relate many different kind of ways. Therefore,
and so that's how all the sentient beings are, dependent on each other. So that's kind of the gross level of interdependence. So, because we have to depend on these beings, therefore it should not cause harm to them. So depending is the view of the interdependence, and then not causing harm. It's because of having to depend on them. We should not cause harm. So again, also the way we harm other beings, there can be also different level. Small, medium, or great level of, or degree of harm. So people that we go along with all the time, that we mingle all the time, we get angry towards them, we say bad words to them. So that's also not virtuous action. So if we get angry towards somebody, then we have caused harm to that person. So because when we get angry towards that person, then we will say something bad or do something bad, and that will make the other person unhappy. Right? So when you become angry towards others, then that makes others unhappy and yourself unhappy. And so that's why it says that when you're causing harm to others, actually it's causing harm to yourself. And so this is something that we can relate to ourselves, something that happens in our life all the time, right? And sometimes these things happen even without knowing, without our knowledge. They just happen, and that's because we are ignorant about that, and also because we're very used to that kind of thoughts and actions all the time. So that happens because our mind is accustomed with the delusions, and we follow our mind all the time. So like if we compare the mind to the body, the mind is more powerful than the body, right? And so the mind, which is more powerful than the body, if that follows the delusions, then automatically the mind, the body and the speech will also follow the delusions as they follow the mind. And then it's important to understand what are the delusions, what are the 3 poisonous delusions, and so forth. And it's also very important to have compassion and wisdom all the time in our mind. For example, if we have wisdom but don't have compassion, then we might use the wisdom in a wrong way, the intelligence of the wisdom in the wrong way, and cause harm to others.
And the same you want the chair, and the run the same you want the chair, help change it to that no simple moment to the rest.
So because the mind is under the influence of the delusions, and the mind and the body or person himself or herself follows the mind, and even though he has he or she has a very powerful, strong wisdom, intelligence, it can be over to cause harm to others.
Today that same chin chazang, so nasi, they want to put chinto by Shiba Yena. And it's not a so not a sort of mean jail that shut away the central cathedral for this.
And so also we should contemplate on equanimity, thinking of oneself and others being equal in wanting happiness and not wanting any suffering. So just as oneself doesn't want any suffering and only wants to have happiness, others are same or equal in wanting to have happiness and not wanting any suffering. So even if it is an enemy who causes harm to us, they also want to have happiness. They also want to have happiness, right? But they have no idea how to achieve that happiness that they are looking for, and they try some different means, and that ends up bringing more suffering to them. So, for example, when we become angry towards somebody, we become angry towards that person because we want to accomplish accomplish our desire or wish, right? Is it true? We become angry in order to accomplish our own wishes. Is it true?
Even you get angry with your co-workers.
Attachment.
Then you say, oh, I want to do this idea, this best way. I understand this is a good way, always think about for my right? Today, chevala teni, any sozo pacho kondosani, pacho atean, kondoma, sozo ya kodosateni, nimanyanga, sepomachiva mazu chara.
And so that way you become angry and the other person also becomes angry, and then both become unhappy all day.
What is in the time to watching on the Nande Chunanga, Numo Karimba, Numo Mamba Karimba, that Lojan Shishi Taba, they always have gone.
And so, we have to study into a great depth or detail in order to understand about these delusions. What kind of mind are deluded mind, what kind of mind are not delusional mind, and so forth.
Kanji Shipa, they are not Jeva Samji, so Machiva Chingana, they are no more.
So any kind of mind, the moment it's developed, if it brings unhappiness to you, then that is delusion. So that mind, by developing which, if it brings unhappiness, or it brings suffering, or unhappiness, then that is delusion. For example, the angry mind. So the angry mind, the moment it's developed, it brings you unhappiness, right? And so that is delusion. Same with the jealousy. And of course, hatred. So when we develop hatred towards somebody, then we become unhappy. And same with attachment, but attachment is a little bit, not a little bit, but it's much more difficult to understand as something that brings an unhappiness into our mind. It's more difficult to understand as a delusion.
What do you think? You think this is true or not? We think it's true that we never do that, right? We just follow that. This is we are used to all of our previous lives. Custom, habit. It's a habit. 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 Okay? That is the number of that so they any can develop the Jana never much easy. Take kitchen.
So anyway, the main thing is not to cause harm to others if we want to be happy ourselves. And then the way you harm can be different levels, right?
Okay. What is that thing on the sit on me? 간제 시와 차와마 제스로 재미님께서 따와 땡주를 해서 들어다 내가 신고를
And so it should not cause harm to others. The reason is because the view, is interdependence.
다 가서 먼저 자위 시다다 뇽모모 시라를 해서 다 자와 뇽모 자와들은 자위 뇽모 두개 와야 말이야.
And so there are many different kind of delusions, but there are 6 root delusions.
너한테 다 주스는 좀 나고 그러고 나도 정말 다 독두문에라 좋았어.
So when it says root, you understand, right? The root means which gives rise to other delusions, like the cause, right?
근데다 다 들어온 거는 내자도 지게 했으면 그랬어.
And the first one is attachment.
어다 너자 간다지란 내자는 죄송하이나 아니 가지 샘코라다 그래 라운드 차로 그랬어.
So whenever the attachment arises in one's mind, and then people become the person becomes uncontrollable or doesn't have any choice to make, follow the attachment.
어때서 지레스 아니 자원이 봐도 공로들이
So and then the second root, is the anger.
아니 선바데 맞아들이
The third one is pride.
아니 시바데 말이 받아들이
Fourth one is ignorance.
말이 받아들다 미시 받아들 말이 받아들 미시 받아.
So ignorance means not knowing, right?
간제 먼저 제가 내가 뛰어라 때니 소리 동안 요요 먼저 딱 mam마치 관계 신고 말했어. 내가 딱 말이 말했어.
So many people don't know that by causing harm to others, oneself become unhappy. Many people don't know that. So not knowing that is ignorance.
I'm ignorant for the English.
Ignorance to English.
Ignorant to English. I think you guys are ignorant for Tibetan. Okay? 다 말이 봐야 나와대 아니 대소면서 들어와.
The fifth one is doubt.
다 대링하고 대소면
So today we're going to discuss about the doubt.
아니 네 대소면서야 돼. 다시 당 대소면서 잡으면 못 버려. 대소면서야 돼. 이해들라다. 가지. 이해노 만노 삼도 그러더라다 대소면서.
So
네가 그 대소면서 말했어.
So you understand doubt, right? Doubt means not sure about something, right? So maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Mind that things like that. It's called doubt. But this, that's generally doubt. But then, of course, the doubt that is the root of the delusion. The root delusion is a little bit more than that.
Some people have doubt for foods. Is food delicious or not? Delicious or not? Not this kind. That time session I was to show the last for us.
So you have the page number? Which
61.
one? Yeah.
다 대중 같이 나 덴바 남라 인이 사와티 기위 총나라 문주를 땡시를 내체스 다 덴바 나다 왜 내서 들어라스 다 인이 사와스 아니 기위 쇼라 문주비 다 로파친 조심이 내지래서.
So here it says, what is doubt? According to the compendium of knowledge, it says what is doubt, and this is being two-minded with regards to the truth. So it has to be with regards to the truth, not just anything, but just with regards to the truth. And it has the function of acting as a support for not engaging in the class of virtue.
시찬이 아니 간도 칼라스나 좋아야 그랬대 대마를 왔어.
So generally, if you eat food, your stomach will be filled, right? You'll be full if you eat food. That's truth, right?
That's true, right? True? No. 어디? 다 네가 대마서야 돼. 이제 겨워 시발할 때는 저 대왕 거래서 대마래서.
So the truth here is referring to the truth of cause and effect. Like if you create a virtuous cause, then you will have a happy result. That's true, right?
좋아. 근데 내당 사당 다 그러. 뭐다 되지? 아니 즉 무게 와서는 저 동안 거래 대대말 왔어.
So if you create non-virtuous actions, as a result, and you will have suffering. That's truth also, right?
다 듣는 것도 좀 알고 말했어.
So many people don't know about that. So here, when we're talking about the truth, it's referring to that kind of truth. So thinking that, if I create non-virtuous action, I wonder if I'll be experiencing suffering as a result. Or if I create virtuous action, I'm not sure if I'll be happy as a result, and so forth. So they're having that kind of two-minded or doubt towards that kind of truth. So the virtuous action is the good action, right? Actually, any action that brings a happy result is a virtuous action. So so you're coming here, listening to the teachings, or even reciting the prayers and so forth. After a whole day's walking, even though you're very tired, after a whole day's walking, you still come here and do all these things. That is virtuous action, right? And so if we think about loving kindness and compassion, then that becomes a virtuous action. So reciting the mantras or the prayers and making offerings of the candles or bodilines and so forth. So in order to practice virtue, it's not necessary for you to sit straight, with the crossed legs, and sit straight on a cushion and do some kind of serious meditation. It's not necessary to do like that. Also circumambulating the temple itself or the stupa out there becomes virtuous action. So that's because in here and out there are many kinds of sacred objects, holy objects. And also if you support the center, work for the center, that becomes virtuous action. So that's because the center provides all these teachings, the practices and so forth, and because you're supporting that, therefore it becomes virtuous action. So there are many different kind of virtuous actions you can create, right? Thinking that I wonder if it's virtuous or not to circumambulate the stupa or the temple. I wonder if it's virtuous or not to support the center and so forth. So thinking like that is the doubt that we're talking about here. And so because of that doubt, then one will not, because one is not sure, one is not certain that it's going to be a good result, a happy result if one engages in virtuous action. If one doesn't know that, or one has doubt towards that, so therefore one will not engage in virtuous action. So that's its function. It says it has the function of acting as a support for not engaging in the class of virtue.
Okay? Apple ke sit ma tam ne che da li do ya bo ma ta ba na je wa ya ji wa yi ji yo lo.
For example, we believe that if we sow a seed of apple and give it all the necessary conditions like water, fertilizer, moisture, and so forth, then you know, we believe that it will grow into an apple tree, right? We
제
believe that.
제 chocolate, 제 chocolate.
But is it necessary that it will grow into an apple tree? If we do that, all that, you know, if the seed is good, and then you provide all the conditions, you know, for it to grow, it will grow?
Yeah. If the seed is good, yes.
Curious. 유견 삼아서는?
그래서 상상. 다들 당도 쨘모자 열스들 리파나마 다 열스와.
So there's an object of debate, right? You can say yes, you can say no, right? You can not necessary, definitely necessary.
그러나 단단 알아서 뭐 간가. 나도 이제 나서지라 산지에 니비 산지에 니방아서 크기라 열어야지.
For example, right now we all have that Buddha nature, right? You know what is Buddha nature? The potential to be able to gain enlightenment, right? We all have that.
나도 가르쳐 상하지 그래서나.
But why didn't we gain enlightenment?
The conditions.
야, 저도 제마상도 제마상 그래서.
Yes.
대배라 홀푸드가 감나 샤샤에 내 감보들라. 내 감보들라 내가 제가 니바 요도 말했어.
And so same like, you know, the dry wheat seed that you find, you know, on the shelf of a whole food market. That has the potential to grow into a sprout, right?
요래.
Has or no? Does it have this potential?
내 chocolate. 내 chocolate.
So if it is barley seed, is it necessary for it to have that potential to grow into a barley? Not necessary?
가르쳐. 비밀상담.
Is it necessary or not?
Yes.
Yes, no.
Yes.
If it's a what seed?
Yeah, what seed to grow
Barley,
to
barley seed.
Body?
Barley.
Barley seed.
Barley
Oh,
seed
is it
or
barley?
any kind of
Barley
seed. So
seed.
long as the seed's viable.
Wheat
Yes.
or
I would
rice.
say yes.
Well, that was a good guess, though.
Huh?
So the question is, if it's a barley seed,
It has the potential to grow into a barley.
Okay.
So if it's a barley seed, right? And then you sow it in the underground and give it all the water, fertilizer, or whatever is needed for it to grow. If you give all that things, it will grow, right?
Yes.
Yes. it
So
has potential.
therefore it has the potential.
Right.
So the only reason why it didn't grow is because it's still sitting in a box or in a can, right? It's not underground, it's not given a fertilizer, and not given water and so forth. So is it necessary now? If it is a barley seed, barley seed.
Barley seed.
Barley seed.
You get a rice seed.
Or wheat seed,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, it doesn't
So
matter, yeah.
as long as it is a seed, is it necessary to have the potential to grow into that grain or no?
It's undamaged, yes.
If it's
It has the potential,
Yeah,
right?
it has
Yeah.
potential.
Yeah.
If you burn it, and does that same seed, can that grow?
Uh-huh.
Is that still-
That's good thinking.
That's one thinking also, right?
Yeah, it invites the question or the clarifier, is the seed viable? If it's a viable seed, that's what you mean then, yes. What you're talking about.
This
So
is
then-
Saying viable is saying, it's the same thing as saying it has the potential, right?
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay,
You're
okay,
defining
sorry,
it.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
But you just said barley seed by itself.
That's right,
So
yeah.
then,
Yeah,
not
my
necessary.
mind looks for that, yeah.
나도 배제나라야. 제르이 비자. 제르 맞췄어요. 그래서. 제르 장 말했어. 제르 그래서.
지금 뭐라 그래?
제장 맞지. 저야 돼.
처음에
제르이 비쳤어. 제르이 맞췄어요. 제르 장 말했어.
아, 네. 어떤 책으로 했더니 제일 뭐라?
지금에서 등로하다 레이로하다 45km 돼요.
Yeah. So
얘들은
it is, you can say it is necessary to have the potential, but it's not necessary that it will grow into. It's necessary to have the potential, but it's not necessary to grow. So just like that, you know, just like the example that Ian gave, like what, you know, it has the potential, but then it will not necessarily, it's not necessary that it will grow, right? Even, you know, not necessarily that it will grow, because if it burns or if it rots,
Damage,
then,
yeah.
you know, it will not grow.
anyway, it's just, you know, usually This will make to more people to thinking, more open the mind, The Tibetan Buddhism philosophy is a key of the mind. They open our mind to many different logics. Usually they say, I never thought this. Why you guys talk about it? Even sometimes we say, it is impermanent or permanent. He said, what?
Who cares?
Who cares? It's impermanent or Usually Tibetan Buddhism, we talk about West. West. We say West is impermanent, or you can go to them. If you went to India, the monastery, they debate death, month, day. West is impermanent, not. Who cares? What's benefit? But we think about logically, there are many different reasons. Tibetan called Dura.
Collective topic.
Collective topic is for key or open our mind. There are many different logics. Sometimes say this. Why you guys talk about this? This is not your business, But this is good for our mind, open in thinking, Usually this kind of thing is, it's a nature. We don't think. But anyway, why do I have to talk this?
Doubt.
Oh, doubt. Doubt. Then is that doubt sevati, that kanji gewa shebala tenen drevet devas yours is. Some toga thing there is. Kanji.
So having that kind of doubt, right? Maybe it is there, maybe it's not there. Sometimes thinking like that kind of doubt. But here it is thinking that by creating virtuous action, will I be really happy or not? Not sure. Still having doubt about the result of the virtuous action.
For example, Tibetan Buddhism says, if you do generosity, when next time I go,
so if you practice generosity, as a result, you'll become rich yourself. So we might have doubt about that, right?
Right? You say, I have to hard work. I have to hard work. I have to make, many, cheating the people, make more money. But we can check, maybe same family, same father and mother, they give same education, maybe 2, 3 with 3 kids. When they grow up, they have different lives. Some very successful, even very too hard work, but they're very easy to reach. There's someone very, very hard working all the time, but all the same. This depends. Of course, it depends. You also cannot grow. Yeah. Conditions, but man cause is hard. That's your memory lesson.
Seed is
Generosity.
Generosity. Then you said, beautiful. Everybody loves beautiful, right? A beautiful, handsome. Then some, in some family, but all the different different kinds, shapes, things coming. Whoever has very passion, previous life, passion is cause of the beauty. Depends.
Patience.
Patience is
What
process
is
of beauty.
Forbearance, or patience, or forbearance. So that's the main cause for beauty, for good look, good body, good features, and so forth.
Even there are 100,000 people, they're all different.
So all these people have different, they're different looks, different features. It all depends on the different causes that each person have created. And so this kind of doubt here is referring to the kind of doubt, that one has towards virtuous actions or non-virtuous actions, and thinking that I wonder if there is a happy result for creating virtuous action or not. thinking, I wonder if there is an unhappy result for creating non-virtuous actions or not. And so it's just as it has been said above, it is a mental factor that wavers between 2 points within observation of the full truth, cause and result, and so forth. So this doubt hinders all virtuous activities and especially hinders the seeing of the truth, since it will be overcome when one sees the truth. It is said to be thorough entanglement, that is an object of abandonment of the path of seeing.
And then Dembacheta Lendis and what I Lendis at it, and the Jagawachan and Driver and the Devan. Jamagawachan and Driver doing all that Lendis at it.
So the cause and result is talking about here, is talking about, if you create a virtuous action, virtuous cause, then you will have a happy result. If you create non-virtuous cause, then you will have unhappy, suffering result.
What is telling that tell each machine that
So that is the cause and result, common law of cause and effect. And not believing in that is the doubt.
What is not true?
Immature.
Image.
That is something immature.
근데 데마시에서 왔다는데 남배를 문에 집다 여대 매대로 그랬어.
And then also in regards to the Four Noble Truths, right? So that is the basic of all the Buddha's teachings.
그봐.
Basis of all Buddha's teaching.
저거 누구한테 말했어요. 그래서 봐.
So we talk about the true suffering, right? Which is the result.
저거 누구한테 말했을 때 강한 나라서 mediocrity 누구한테 그랬어.
So every suffering that we experience it falls under the true suffering, right?
근데 저거 딘레베테 지텔 저나 저를 접근주 말이 받으래서.
And so that's the sort of suffering, this true suffering, and what is the cause of that true suffering? There is a cause, and the cause is the true origin.
근데서 나라서 가르잖아. 나도 지금 나와 있나? 담보가도 나가도 무슨 거 들어왔어.
So true origin here is referring to the karma and delusions, right? So, for example, if we are sick, then first we have to find out the disease, right? What kind of disease is causing us to be sick?
그래서 나라서 담보 누가들 무슨 거 그랬어.
So just like that, first we have to find out, identify the sufferings, recognize the sufferings.
네가 그 동안 생각도 레칼레로 칼레카야다 즉 뭐무시티 누가테랑 무슨 거 말이야.
So the suffering here is not referring to just the suffering of feeling tired of walking whole day.
Right. Are you guys feel tired? Of course we have to walk every day. Not that kind. Example. 다 대라 누가텔라야 누가지 동안 예외 동안 차와지 동안 숨이어레스.
And then so the suffering, that kind of suffering, true suffering, there are 3 different kinds, right? The suffering of pain, and, suffering of change, and all-pervasive conditional suffering.
Are you guys really know that? I think most different people they know. Right? Oh. 이제 이번 가서 가봐 마찬가지 되다 와이나. 담보 지원해 와니. 가만 가시야. 가만 약간 잘 왔어.
So, for example, like if you stretch your leg, you feel kind of peaceful, right? Blissful, happy, and then after you stretch for a long time, then you feel like bending it, right? And then you bend it in again.
대란 제외도 가서 나도 다 대왕 거죠. 대란 제외도 말했어.
Then you feel good when you bend it, right? You feel good. That's actually happiness, right? But here, that's what we're talking about. Suffering. That's also suffering. That's called suffering of change.
Now we got a little bit heat, a little bit warm, more comfortable, right? Maybe he's more strong. Then we say, oh, it's too much. Oh. 대신 대화 때 동안 뭐 반전을 그래서 말아서 대화 무슨 말도 대 산책이 때 대화만 동안 써요. 그래서.
So we think of that as happiness, but then that changes into suffering. right? That's why it's called suffering of change.
어, 들이 동화 되지. 아니, 대 동화도 동화세. 아, 대 제외 동화세. 동화도 동화세나? 아니, 나도 뭐나야, 강바나야. 다 내가 너 깔래 가야. 또 봐지 무슨 저거를 했어. 내가 또 무슨 거를 내라고 그랬어.
So the suffering of pain or suffering of suffering is the suffering that we think of as suffering, something that we normally think as suffering. So like headache, pain, the pain in the knee or pain in the leg, or feeling tired of working all day and so forth. Those kind of sufferings. And that's the suffering of suffering. And most of us, we recognize that as a suffering.
아니, 자원지 동화세를 딱 고외 동화들이 다 땡겨내려고 무슨 동화랬어.
And then the conditional, the all-pervasive suffering is the samsaric suffering. That is not easily understood.
오래. 텐데 동화대 무슨 내스. 담보 동화대 무슨 맞지 그랬어.
And so anyway, first we have to identify these sufferings.
다 동화대 무슨 나 동화 탄도로 깨기로 와서 깨기로 말.
So if we identify or recognize these as a suffering, then we'll have a wish to be free from these sufferings, right?
When we got sick, then we are wish to the freedom for what's that?
Sick.
Free the sick, right?
Free from sickness.
Usually we don't sick, we don't have any
Wish.
wishes, any feelings. But when we identify or we feel the sick, then we say, oh, I have to go see the doctor, I have to take the medicine. Then we have to check out what's the cause.
Cause.
And we looking for the cause, right? This country, if you go to India, you have headache, they give you headache. What called headache?
Medicine.
Government. They give you headache medicine just immediately that time. In this country they check, even the patients are very sick, they have not much movement with that. They don't give them any medicine. Right? This country they don't give. Even the very serious sick, they don't give the medicine, if they just give the painkiller, right? In India, we go to the hospital, they can give injection. Usually in India, the injection is very good. We got sick, very high fever, they just give injection. They come to the come on. So that's a loss.
Reduce the fever.
Right? Whenever also there are more patients and more power. We can ask her to, I need to this medicine. Some patients look as doctor, they know what kind of medicine is good, what kind not good. Then we go to the doctors, we ask her to, I need this medicine, I need that medicine, I need 2 injections, they can give immediately. But here, the investigation to make all kind of things worse.
About the disease, where it came from, what caused it, and so forth.
Also, it's trying to do the worse.
And also whether this can be cured or not.
Oh, this is a good way. 대도 치바. 근데 다른 동아때 제도도 문도. 제대로 가와도 가는데 중무성. 제대로 근주 말이 파세들 했어.
So just like that, when we identify the sufferings, then we have to see, so okay, this is suffering, but then where did they come from? Then you look for the cause of these sufferings, which is the true origin. So that's the true origin. And so the true origin here is referring to the ignorance, the delusion, and the karma delusion. So mainly the delusion, and among all the delusion, it is the ignorance. So it's, the result, suffering, and the cause, the origin, is the true truth. Then control. And you call this. And you the guide of this. And you the guide of the other golden toilets. Golden mother chest.
all in all. What today the time they pan do the touch show the top pan do's the power sage, that was to send to change your risk. There are go there, the power go this.
And then you check, whether these cause or the true origins, the delusions and karma, can be seized or not, and can you achieve freedom from all these delusions and the sufferings or not. So seeing that there is a cessation that you can achieve, that's the true cessation.
Not a man of the daughter can not a Muslim sensible. That a pine with try your race in the Kurukulla, that was try your race, that is cheaper was.
So that's the result, right? So the cessation, the true cessation is the result. Just like when you go to see the doctor, and then doctor finds out what is the disease, and then he knows what caused that disease, and then whether you can be free from that disease or not. Says, oh yes, you can achieve the freedom from this disease.
Oh, tell us that's about go there, it wasn't go there.
So there's the relief, the finding the relief from the disease, cessation. So that's called the true cessation.
Tate pine on a country pound, Tapish garden, or Tate pine lamset gomgores, Talamdes at Songores.
And so then if you can if it can be cured, then what should you do to cure it, right? The disease. And so just like that, if you can achieve that cessation, freedom from all the sufferings and the cause of suffering, then how can I achieve it? So in order to achieve, then you have to do this and that. So that's called the true path.
Today they can not do my own and the jokin to Maripata, Mobata race. Tindig and Moba Sajing Lote, Tony Tovisha, Dometovisha, the Gokores.
And so what causes all this suffering is the delusion, right? Especially the ignorance. And in order to achieve the cessation from this ignorance, the only method, only means to achieve that is through meditating on the true path. So here, the true path is referring to the wisdom relies in emptiness, the wisdom relies in selflessness.
What that they not big chip, Takarbo, legend that Demba Jing yesterday, that not big chip. Matara, that's our the truth. What that has some changes.
And so this is like these four noble truths. It's like I said, this is the basis of all the Buddha's teachings, Buddhist practice and Buddhist teachings. And so if one has doubt towards that, then that's a very bad doubt. Then one will not achieve all these results of the cessations, and true path, and so forth.
Are you guys have doubt? What's the reason? And they pan Kalekova, Kajetan, Tonoga,
So it says here, this doubt hinders all the virtuous activities, and especially hinders seeing of the truth, right? Since it will be overcome when one sees the truth. So that kind of doubt is only overcome when you see the truth, and completely. And of course, you can overcome a little bit of it, but to overcome it completely, you have to see the truth. And it is said to be a thorough entanglement that is an object of abandonment of the path of seeing. So only when you achieve the path of seeing, then you thoroughly abandon it.
Realizing emptiness directly.
Yes. So, for example, anyway, so do you know what material is used to make that cup?
Do you know?
Ceramic.
Some kind of ceramic,
Porcelain.
something. Yeah.
Porcelain, yes, right.
This is not tree?
No, what?
Not tree? No wood?
Wood.
No.
No rock?
No.
This is rock.
No.
Anyway, I feel this is the rock. Okay? Now I understand this is the rock. Therefore I have the ignorant, right? You guys said that was. The rock mind but tope low to get major weather, rock rest of the low to me and was.
And so until I'm convinced that it is not rock, my doubt thinking that it is a rock will not be gone, right? Cannot be removed.
나도 내가 가르쳐왔는데 소수치 인선 담아시 템 다 많이 봐. 따다하고 그런 것도 돼. 인생별로 다 배워보면 좋았어.
So whatever we think, something is, until we realize that it's not that completely, until we realize it completely that it's not that, then our mind thinking it is that will still be there, right?
다 네가는 배나 담에 도서 돈이 도서야 돼. 다시랑 깔에 가버려서.
So in order to, like completely or thoroughly remove this doubt from one's mind, one has to realize the emptiness of selflessness, right? So, and then realizing that is pretty difficult.
남도 단단 알아서 수도서 나와이나. 아랑이는 저저 수도링은 저도 와이나 나게 그래서.
So whatever things appear to us right now, they all appear as existing from their one side.
남도 단단 나가는 최고의 말했어.
But they don't exist the way they appear to us, right?
We even think it's true or not. How you appears me.
How do you appear? How do I appear to you?
How do I appear to you?
How do I appear to you?
Existing from your own side.
되게 나가도 왔어.
Does it appear like that?
No.
Huh? It does?
Conventionally.
It doesn't.
I don't know.
Let's all repeat.
It doesn't appear as exist from its one side to Ian.
Maybe you got a little difficult. First you can tap, Usually,
So in Buddhism we say things do not exist as they appear to us. So if they do exist as they appear to us, then they appear to exist to us as exist from their one side, right? As something that we can point to. And that's how it appears. And if it really exists the way it appears to us, then we should be able to point to it, right? Can we point to it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I would put the Geshe.
You can point to Geshe?
Yeah.
Cool. Point to him. Which one is it?
Point
Which one is Geshe?
Yes, supporting it.
Which one is Geshe? Can you point?
Yes, that's Geshe.
Which one?
Which one what?
Which one you're pointing to?
Not you, him?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So to his head, to this, that's his head.
That, okay, all right.
So if you're
No,
pointing
the
to
whole-
this
the
is
whole-
body, right?
The whole person.
Yeah, so you can't point, right?
No. You can't point to one spot.
can't be
no.
found.
But it appears as if you can point.
Mm.
It appears as if you can point, but if you can do it, if you really try to go and point, you can't point. That's the.
If we look for something, we say we go to find, we say, okay, I go to kitchen, I want to cut something, I want to look for a knife, you have to lot stuff there. Or maybe you have to go to, before walk, you have to look at makeup. Now you're looking for the things, you have a lot of things. I don't know you guys are maybe. You can find where something, okay, this is the knife, use. Now you can look, yes, okay, where's Geshe? Looking for my body, my mind is me. No, you can work out. Investigation by yourself, you say. Okay, my head is me. No, you say my head, right? My mind, my body, my leg, my house. You can look about this part, then we didn't find.
You understand?
You understand?
I do, but we have this discussion.
Yeah.
a lot, yeah. But to say that there's nothing, you can't say there's nothing there.
It is there, but you just can't find it.
You can't find it in.
You can't, if you look for it, you will not be able to find it.
Okay, I won't be able to find
Yeah.
him.
Yes.
Yes.
The collection serves the
I got
function.
If you look for Geshe,
Yes.
you will not find him.
Okay.
You better not look for him.
Yeah.
That part.
So that's how we know. So
Right, yeah.
but how it appears, how Geshe appears to us is that if we look for him, we will be able to find. That's how it appears, right?
Yes.
But if we really look for him, then we will not be able to find him.
Right.
But Geshe is there. He's speaking. He's teaching. You can see that.
Yeah.
That's what we mean.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, look like that kind. It's very difficult, sometimes not make sense, So what you guys talk about? We are really here. We can see each other, We say, what you guys talk about? But
So that's the ignorance. So that's the ignorance that things do not exist the way they appear to us.
what did you buy that? 어떤 동봉 간지 다 나도면 봐고 동반이 되겠는데 그게 또 와 있나? 아니 다들 대해서 빵토고 그래서 와.
And that's the truth, right? The truth is that we cannot, the things do not exist the way they appear to us. But we don't realize that. But we think the opposite. So that's the ignorance. So whenever we are able to see that, whenever we are able to see that things do not exist the way they appear to us, then that's when we see the truth.
Okay. 다 되지. 다 누구한테 다 주바. 다 주바가래. 따와 유모 진사이 다 되게 들어와.
So that's the part of seeing. That's when you see it directly. And now the next is the sixth root delusion. Sixth root delusion is the afflicted views.
다 따와 유모 진사이 들 아니 집다 다다 따와 조선 들도 되는 조선 로다치 땅가요 그래서 와.
And so this view, afflicted view, has 5 different kinds. It says the view of the transitory collection, the view holding to an extreme, conception of the bad views as supreme, conception of bad ethics and mode of conduct as supreme, a wrong view.
다 되는 거 다 동보 이제 따라야 돼. 다 가서 빵거든 이제 따라야 돼. 말이 방금 돼.
So the main wrong view, is the first one, which is the view of the transitory collection.
어디 다 이거는 지다 가신다. 이거밖에 이제 돌아다와 강신나스. 녀월이 공공하고 나라 나도 나기와 야다 바지스 때리 다 조바다 다 조바라 뭐 다 지스 좀 바다에서 그러고.
So regarding the view of the transitory collection, the compendium of knowledge says, what is the view of transitory collection? So here it is talking about the definition of meaning, right? The meaning, what do you mean by the view of the transitory collection? It says it is any endurance, desire, intelligence, conception, or view which views the 5 appropriated aggregate as a real I and mind. It has the function of acting as support for all views.
그래서 가서 나라수지랑 가서 뭐 저한테 다또 부모가라 부모는 또 수지 부모를 당해서 따고 그랬어.
So grasping at my body, like my form, my body, right? My form aggregate, and then thinking of that as me. So that is transitory, the transitory, the view of the transitory collection.
나도 몇 가지 다 아니 수지 부모를 당해서 몇 대 나도 다 왔어.
So usually that's what we see, right? And what we see is the form aggregate of that person, and then we think that person, that form aggregate of that person is that person.
근데 뭐대 또배 따지면 말이죠.
And so the person is merely imputed. The person is merely imputed by mind, right?
그런데 뭐들 미 갖다더라. 뭐들 제네벌 나게다. 제네벌은 미 가dit다고는 되는 때문에 제네벌 좋아서 말았어.
And so someone who is called Jennifer is imputed by, right? Imputed, and the name Jennifer, it can be given to anybody, right? But it was given to that person, and since then, that person becomes Jennifer.
와, 다 데레 젠 타잖아. 아니, 다 미리 젠 좋아서 말았어.
And so if that person is called Jen, then that person becomes Jen, right?
그래서 다 감각까지 또배 파 따서 말이야. 그런 거니 다 젠이 와도 젠보다 처럼 매만 말했어.
So it's all imputed by our mind, by us, by other people. From her side, she doesn't say, "Oh, I'm Jennifer," or she doesn't come as Jennifer or as a Jen. She became Jen or Jennifer after she was imputed or named as a Jen or Jennifer.
근데 다시 오는데 나서라도 I'm Jennifer. I'm the Robert 다 용도 왔어. 소소소소 봤다.
And so then we call ourselves as, "Oh, I'm Jennifer, I'm Robert," and so forth, right?
Right? Okay? 어디지 다? 다들 니는 조바해야 돼. 니는 조바해야 돼. 다 얼마 알티리시 올려면 다 들어가는 거지로. 조바는 노바나 르르다 또바나 따와 강인 바데. 따와든지 땡시 빌레체는 다 따와 관계는 다 용구 관계도 좋아 내려서.
And so it says it has the function of acting as a support for all views. So this is all the views, all the wrong views. So this as a support for all the views.
다도 니는지 풍고라면 나다 나야와도 미셔라 용무지 않았어. 다 가지고 가시는 나야와도 성경을 봤어.
And then the author of this text gives further explanation by saying, just as it has been said above in the compendium of knowledge, it is an afflicted wisdom that observes the appropriated aggregates and apprehends them to be a real I and mind. So you understand the I and mind, right? So I is me, right? And the mind is the things that belongs to me, right? It's like my hand, my box, and my shoes and so forth. And so in some tenets or schools of thought, it says that the aggregate, the 5 aggregates are the person. And so it says here, what is the reason for calling this view the view of transitory collection? It is just as it has been said in the great exposition of the stages of the path. Regarding this, since the transitory is impermanent and the collection is manifold, the basis which it views is simply phenomena that are impermanent and manifold. Right? Makes sense? Understandable, right? For example, we are impermanent, right? We are impermanent human beings.
Yeah.
People are impermanent. And then we have a manifold, right? Like many aggregates. We have 5 aggregates. Those are many, right? And to which we are called such and such, right? For example, this cup, is impermanent and it has manifold materials, right? It is made of many different kind of materials. And so it is that, it is that. It's not something that it came up on by itself, by depending on just one material. It says, however, one designates the name view of the transitory collection in order to indicate that the permanent and unitary person does not exist. Right? And then here again, the compendium of knowledge explains the synonyms, right? Endurance and so forth. So here since it does not fear the earnest meaning, it is called an endurance. And earlier when we talked about in the response where it says endurance, desire, intelligence, so that's what it's talking about here. So since it seeks the earnest object, it is called a desire. And so it shows that we are always seeking the wrong or erroneous objects, right? And so since it thoroughly discriminates that object, it's called an intelligence. Since it strongly adheres to that object, it is called a conception. And since it observes that object, it is called view. And so it says the view of the transitory collection has the function of acting as support for all bad views. So it says here then to prove that, he said, thus we adopt as an expression of realization of the 7 maidens, says, one way we eradicate the view of the transitory collection, the mother of all views. So it's the view of the transitory collection, is the mother of all the views. It supports all the wrong views. And no longer desires the enjoyments of cyclic existence, and so forth. And so they're talking about like 20 types of view of the transitory collections.
Oh, but that 가지, 다른 집단이 시도 소도 뭐다 내가 그렇게 진이 되는 것도 맞나 무슨 집어지 말라 돼야 되더라. 그 예말이 전에 그 샤워를 들어와.
So then later it talks about the 20 different kind of transitory view, the view of the transitory collection. It's all very similar, maybe very subtle differences, which we will not be able to see much. So anyway, we'll stop here for today and discuss further next time.
Okay, 어머 지금은 주 다만 다주만 다주 대마만 있어요. 다서 좀 너무 머리 뛰고 들어가는 거죠. 같이 던질 때 갖고서 뭐 다서 그러지 마.
So anyway, you understand what is the transitory view of the transitory collection, right? In general, why is it called view of the transitory collection, right?
뭐? 얘 맞다만 이봐지. 대야 안에 초반만 맞다서 봐. 대들들 진짜로 들로 내가 집 다세.
So that which is transitory, which means impermanent, right? And then collection is manifold, which has the manifolds. And to something that, something which is transitory and a collection, you view as that thing, and so forth. So that's called the transitory, the view of the transitory collection. And that which acts as the support, of all the bad views.
Okay. Then any questions? Yeah, good. Give all the questions. Oh yeah, maybe.
Did you have the mic?
I'm sorry, I forgot what the 5 aggregates are. And those. Thank you. Could you list the 5 aggregates? I forgot. I know it's form, name, and I forget the other 3.
Who knows? Huh?
Form, feelings, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness.
Good, is it?
Okay.
See, we have some.
I forgot.
We walk together.
Yeah, I forgot those.
No. I'm not saying you very well forgot that, but that should have been done in the name.
So that's the benefits of Dharma friend.
If one doesn't
From each
know,
other.
Feeling.
then one
Okay.
more understanding.
It's straight from the Heart Sutra.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, good. Then?
Good. I won't forget now.
Yeah? Ian? Give the Ian.
Just going back to what you said earlier about the suffering of change, you gave the example about when you stretch your leg out and it starts to hurt and you bring it back in and it feels good as a temporary happiness. So when you said that temporary happiness is a suffering of change, is that in the nature of suffering or is that suffering? Or are those both the same thing?
누가 하지? 그럼 누가 하셔야 돼? 그거 내가 이어봤어.
So the one Rashi is a good one.
누가 하셔야 돼? 그거 그러면 가져야 돼. 그거 맞으면 그 누가 잘하고 그랬어.
Yeah, you can call it both in this case. Even though it feels good at that time, but it has the nature of suffering. It has the nature of suffering, therefore it becomes suffering later. So you don't feel the suffering at that time, but then you feel the suffering later. That turns into a suffering later. So that has the nature of suffering, and it is suffering. It's just suffering of change. So you can say both here.
So if you do a virtuous action and the result is some pleasure and that's temporary, it's the suffering of change, the result of that virtuous action is suffering.
and do it one is was. And then that never with the body, then because never with the other domain, then never with the other, give it the winds, then give it with the watch out of us.
Give it too much as you are.
Yeah, you can't have suffering result of the virtuous action.
But it's a subject change.
And then never with the body, then because give it to Maras, never with the body.
내가 대화 기회를 딱 그냥 손님 사실이 되어야 되나 대 기회 대화 가로 기회 대화 동안 쳐서 말했어.
누말한테.
대 동안 있는 딱 그거 동안 뭐도 그 기회 지원할 때 대화 동안 못 쳐서 말했어.
다들 동안 용서라.
딱 동안 용서나 가지. 딱 내가 직접 샤워하려고 다 직접 영어도 영어를 했어. 그렇지. 내가 때 개화적을 할 때니 그걸 동안 주셔도 말했어. 시간에 개화적을 하는 다지.
So what do you think? Is it suffering?
For me, I always thought there was a difference between suffering and the nature of suffering. Because if it's in the nature of suffering, it's tainted by ignorance and delusion. But for example, if you do a virtue and it results into an action, it results in some kind of happiness that's temporary. It has a suffering of change. It's still a samsaric result.
Samsaric
suffering.
Yes.
It's still tainted by ignorance, and so you're not free from samsara, so there's always going to be that suffering. So it's kind of in the nature of suffering in that way. But
그러나 지나게 개화적을 할 때는 되게 딱 동안으로 갈 빼놓고 시작했어.
그래서
자, 개화치가 내가 인도 동안 개화치가 내가 인도 동안 죄송하지 빼놓고 시작했어. 내가 없어 버려 그랬어. 빼놓고. 근데 개변 되는데
어디가?
다들 동안 쳐서
Oh, so Geshe wants you to give him an example of temporary happiness, which is the result of virtuous action, and then which later turns into suffering.
Then what
right?
we can
So can you give examples?
Yeah.
Being born as a human.
Is that what it would say?
no, well, I think
Okay.
suffering.
Could say more.
Just even more simple. Just you practice generosity, you reborn rich. That's the result. But that's temporary, and then you have to separate from it.
So that's suffering?
Yeah. According to what we said earlier, the suffering will change.
Suffering will change. So suffering will change is suffering.
Yeah.
그 말을 해서 그래.
네.
다 배나다는 진배당에 진배로 준비 됐었는데 진배당은 농촌 준비 그랬어라. 그 농촌 준비 영화들 때는 예외되더라. 이나다 그 농촌 준비 영화도 그 내가 봐. 그 제가 더 라더라. 라서는 라거든 동화 좀 보라. 그래서 저 교회 동화 잘 오랐어. 근데 그 농촌에 된 동화 잘 오랐어. 교회 동화 됐어.
오케이. then
농촌 중앙에. 그러서는 거의 미끼와
미치와대 동안에서
교회 동화에서.
미치와대 동안에서. Okay, now you guys debate here. What do you think?
Anybody has any different?
Any different ideas?
Yeah.
Good. Tell me more.
I think since we're in samsara, so that we haven't experienced one iota of real happiness ever, and that when we talk about virtuous actions, they're always tainted. There's no purely virtuous action. If we committed one pure, perfect virtuous action, then we had one pure result in pure happiness. We would no longer be in samsara.
여한 남자들 싸워 있나? 나는 여한 남자 싸우거든. 대우 말해서 거하는 게 대우돼서 거하는 내시도 값 요원 되고 저러다 내가 대원이가 되고 저러다 상마들은 여한 남자들 대우 말했어. 되게 여한 남자들 대우는 것들은 거와 다타는 양대기 되고 그랬어.
Okay, good then.
The way I perceive this whole thing is, you have a virtuous action, and in my mindset, in doing something, my intention is set to do a good thing, and some suffering comes out of it, and and my intention was to do a good thing, so it's like on the intention, that's how the virtuous action would take place.
다음 말하기 때문에 먼저 선물을 알아야 돼. 먼저 선물을 줘야 돼. 선물단을 알아야 돼. 여인인데. 먼저 선물단에 여치기라는 선물단에 먼저 가고 그러면 동안이야 되는 거랬어. 그래서 줘야 돼 선물단을 했어. 선물을 했어.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. Very, very good. Then 같이 가서 미리 도와대다 이제 동을 했어. 개원한다 그래 말했어. 개원한다 그래 많이 아니 가서 미리 도와대. 근데 개원남다 그래서 바지 쪽 조시 문을 도와면 3% 더 말했어. 그래서 개원한다 그래 나는 그런 거 그랬어.
So you're saying that being born as human being, or even being born as human being with all these favorable conditions to practice Dharma, right? The human life with the 8 leisures and 10 endowments, and so that's also suffering.
Well,
And that's not a result of a pure virtue.
we were, in order to be born a human being, we must have had heaps of
Virtue,
virtue
right.
that we've built up since beginningless time.
Yes,
As they say, it's so hard to be born a human being.
exactly.
But at the same time, when we're born a human being, we haven't achieved the result. We're still not Buddha, and we're still subject to suffering.
Yes. But do we have happiness or no?
Not
No happiness.
not permanent happiness.
Not an
Unending
absolute,
happiness.
not absolute, not a moment.
Not a moment.
Of absolute happiness that doesn't change, that, you know, that's...
For a few moments, right?
It's contaminated, though, because you can lose it, you're afraid of losing it.
Yeah.
In all 6 realms, there's not one absolute moment of pure happiness.
I thought the gods have happiness throughout their lifetime. They only have suffering at the time of death.
같이 가서 계산 고왔지야 인자. 근데 누가 요래서 고라 타면 인자. 옛날에 계획은 내가 아니 거기 동안 저송때 말했어.
It seems like it's not complete, though.
시전에 가서
I'm
고와
not a
보면
good communicator, it doesn't seem like it's complete.
마땅해서 미켜내는데 기회 되고라.
계획을 그랬어.
미켜와 렌즈한테 미그 동안의 연구고라.
미끼월도 다 미그 동안 연구 그랬어. 근데 계획 내가 누가 저송 말했어.
미때인데 매번은 그 동안 오세요. 마땅 저도 좀 잘 오거든.
그때 말해. 동안 계획을 동안 가셔자.
기회 되고.
계획을 말. 내가 가서 고아빠 매와 인자 아니 다 내가 가진 거기 동안 아니 또 연구 그랬어. 내 계획을 내가
그런 거 나도 잘 오래.
정말
그런 거 나도 잘 오래. 여한 남다. 그래서 나도 정주 쌤스 오래가. 돈 모스터 베셔라. 이심베다는 겨워지 시험하는 뒤거다 거 다시 유차로.
들도 잘했다. 근데 다 대단한 거 제도를 말았어.
그래.
단단하게 좀 밀리려고까지 계획을 했어.
내가 볼게요.
다 내가 이때 와서 까지 계획을 했어. 근데 동아를 되나요? 다한테 계획을 동아 쳐서 말했어. 대행만 가서 내가 못 사셔요. 맞아? 근데 되게 어려운 이유였어.
See, if we put everything into suffering, then you can't say. If you put everything into suffering, right? The suffering that we have is also temporary, right? It's not suffering all the time. And then happiness, we also have happiness, temporary, even though it's temporary happiness, but it's still happiness, even if it's for a very short time.
I changed my mind.
So we do have some kind of happiness, right? So that happiness is a virtuous action. It's a result of virtuous action. And the suffering, of course, there are a lot of sufferings. Those sufferings are a result of non-virtuous action. So the happiness that is at that time, of course, that's a temporal happiness. You know, and even if it's temporal happiness, it's still a result of the virtuous action. You have to say it's a result of virtuous action. Yeah. If you put everything into suffering, like that, then of course, when we talk about the suffering of pain, absolutely the result of native karma, right? Non-virtuous. But suffering of change and all-pervasive suffering, even as being born as a human being, is all-pervasive suffering, right? So because you have this body, therefore you suffer, right? If you didn't have this body, if you are not born as a human being, you will not have the suffering of human beings. So that's the suffering of change, all-pervasive suffering. So depending on the conditions, you experience all these different kinds of suffering. So that you can say that's a suffering, but you know the negative karma that results into suffering is mostly the suffering of suffering we're talking about. And same with the generosity. You know, when you practice generosity, of course, you know the result will be that you become rich, and then also there's a temporary happiness when you become rich, right? So that, you know, is good. That's being rich is good. Of course, that can change. You know, can lead you to do bad things because you have money. So you take drug and all these things that can make you go and drink, you know, because you have money. You know, that can lead you to. But having money itself, you know, is the virtuous action. But then what makes you do that bad, you know, is other delusions, you know, that condition you to engage in those non-virtuous actions. And so if you say the generosity itself is being rich itself, you know, is a suffering, then it has to be from the non-virtuous action, but it is from the virtuous action. So it's just like, you know, because, you know, when you feel hungry, right? You feel hungry, and that's the result of what? Hungry is suffering, right? Hunger is suffering, right? So nobody likes to be hungry, so hunger is suffering. And hunger is the result of, has to be negative karma, right? But if you didn't eat, you will not become hungry, right? If you didn't eat, you won't become hungry. So you used up the food, and then you become hungry, right? So you eat, and then you know the food is gone, right? It's distributed into your body, right? You know, some become, you know, a potential for protein for some part of the body, and some becomes waste, and it's all gone, and now you're hungry, right? And so that hunger came from that eating, right? So is it the result of the eating? No, right? It's different, right? So of course, you know, that changed, and that the full stomach, you know, changed into a hungry stomach, right? It turned into that later, right? When the waste are gone, and when it's going into the waste or going into the different part of the body, then it became, so it changed, right? So later is a suffering, but earlier is not suffering, right?
So you can't just call it just suffering.
Just suffering, yes.
You
That's
can't
right.
call it suffering.
You can't call it just suffering, but you can like the nature of suffering, having the nature of suffering.
That's what I was differentiating.
So it's very helpful to have analyze it from the 3 points of view, like going back to the gods' realms. They're happy all the time, but they are still subject to all pervasive suffering.
That's right.
So they are still suffering, even though they may not realize it, which is why they don't, you know, seek out the Dharma.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, 간지 맞지? 저 나네.
Just a fact, isn't it true though that every samsara happiness has at its inception the seed of suffering?
Sorry, in the samsara happiness?
That every samsara happiness at its inception, the moment it begins, has within it the seed of suffering. You eat that meal and you're full, but you will get hungry.
Yes.
You're born as a god, but you will die.
Yes. 아니 나거든 용어들이랑 시여서 그러다. 거기 내가 처음으로 동아랑 시여했어.
고아 참에 와 있다고.
동아랑 시여서. Yeah, we can say that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Any objection to that?
That sounds good.
근데 이 바이자 간지 저것도 왜 동안에 갈아서 되게 내버려서 나 아니 내가 말했어. 그래도 제체 못 찾는 제 돈으로 다 제체 못 찾는 내버려서 나 아니 이거 가.
So you know, so just like that, you know. So when you eat and your stomach is full, but later you become hungry because your food is gone from your body. So it's not because of that, right? Because of eating, you know. So losing wealth later is not because of having wealth.
It's just simply because you have karma.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
So there's a different karma for different karma for a different result.
Yeah.
아니 미쳐와라면 미동안데 미쳐와라면 개와팅에 내버려서 나한테 말했어. 미쳐와라지 개와팅이 미쳐와라 말이야. 미동안 동안난 거 같아요. 저거 뭐 사셔요.
And so even though, you know, human being is in all pervasive suffering, but again, all the sufferings that you experience and as a human being is not result of the virtuous action for being born as a human being. So while you are born in being as a human being, the suffering that you experience as a human being is a result of non-virtuous, other non-virtuous action, not the result of the observing morality. And so yeah, mostly the action, the karma that you create is like you said, it's all intention. In your mind, what you're thinking of doing, that's what it counts. And so again, you have to, even though you have the intention, then it also depends on the action. So your intention is to help, but then if you, hit the insect with the intention to help, then you might kill it, right? So then, of course, it depends on that also. It depends on the action also. And so, for example, like, in the West, people, when their pets, like the dogs and cats, when their pets grow old, and then they put them into sleep, right? Give them an injection and then kill them. But their intention is good. Right? They say, oh, okay, because they're suffering so much, they're too old, they can't do anything by themselves, so better kill them. And so then that's what they do. But according to Dharma, it's not good. Still, you're taking the life of other beings, so you create the karma of killing. And so even though you have the good intention, but you still, can't do that action of killing. If you do that, then it becomes killing. Unless you're killing for a really, really big purpose. Like if that killing is going to save thousands of people.
You have the wisdom to know.
And then it was the wisdom to know. And you have an equal compassion to that person who's going to kill as all the other people who are going to be killed. If you have that kind of, if you are in that level, then you can kill, and otherwise you cannot kill.
Okay, but this context we have to think more, talk more. It's good for. If you think more, talk more, then you understand more. Otherwise, you just stay there.
Thank you.
Not much understand. Okay. Okay. Have a good night.
Good
Night.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Chaitanya Mataji.
yes, page 39.
Yeah.